I want to start first with the presidency with you, because in the past, you've called his presidency a comedy rather than a tragedy. We've seen the administration scramble to perhaps avert a government shutdown while at the same time saying maybe a shutdown will be good. No matter what happens, though, the base and his support is still there. Is it a wise move for the president right now to be pinning everything on the base staying with him as he touts the economy doing well and the stock market doing well? That could all go up in flames very quickly.
It could. We all know that financial markets have a way of surprising, that no bull market is forever. And there have been many people, my colleague at Harvard, Marty Feldstein, just this week in the Journal, who've warned that a correction could come along and spoil that part of Donald Trump's argument. On the other hand, if you look at that approval rating of his, it has been ticking up in the last few
From a
weeks.
low base.
From a historically low base. Remember, he was the most unpopular president at the outset since polling began, and he didn't get any more popular in his first year. But you begin to see the possible inflection point here as the economic good news just keeps on coming in. Plus, I'd like to point out that Trump is getting some wins on foreign policy that aren't really getting anything like enough airtime. I mean, he changed the policy in Iran, and by the end of last year, Iran was in a state of upheaval. He took a much tougher line on North Korea, and now guess what? The North Koreans and South Koreans are making nice with one another. So one of the things that's odd about the Trump presidency is the way that he tends to shoot himself in the foot with that Twitter feed of his. You know, if he tweeted less and said fewer off-the-cuff racist things that shock so many people unjustly, we would be focusing more on the outcomes. We'd be focusing more on what's actually getting done. And I think that would, in fact, reflect much better on him.
You think he's undermining his own success?
Well, I think the strategy of kind of enraging liberals by being outrageous has one benefit, and that is that it seems to force Democrats to the left. And I think one sees this on the immigration issue. It's quite good from a Republican strategic point of view if the Democrats become more and more committed to sanctuary cities, to the undocumented. A lot of Republicans don't feel good about that at all. But my sense is that the costs and benefits of the president's populist outrage are kind of finely poised at this point. And I'm not sure he's necessarily net better off with some of the most outrageous things that he's said of late. I think if he'd said much less over the last let's say 12 months, and focused more on the achievements, he'd be riding higher in the polls.
Do you think we've seen the lows as far as the polls are concerned? Because there's many aspects now already, short-term and longer-term, that are playing to his favour if we keep the tweeting aside.
Right. I mean, one of the things I try to argue in The Square and the Tower is that we have a new kind of politics here, which some of us are still struggling to get our heads around. It's a public sphere that's no longer dominated by network television. It's increasingly dominated by social media. And the president has shown himself to have a much better understanding, not just of Twitter, but of Facebook, than his political rivals. So one thing I did learn over 2 years of thinking and writing about Donald Trump is don't underestimate him, and don't make the mistake of judging him by conventional measures. One thing I did recently was just to run an experiment. I asked myself, leaving aside personalities, what presidency is this like? I mean, is this like the first year of Nixon? And lots of people have drawn that parallel. There are lots of Democrats who would love this to be Watergate all over again. There's even a movie by Spielberg you can go and watch. You can fantasize about, you know, the Washington Post bringing down Donald Trump. But it's not really like Nixon's first year at all. It's much more like Bill Clinton's first year. Go back and read Woodward's The Agenda. Change the names, and you kind of have a version of what we've seen in the last year.